OpenAI is back in the news. We love it when this happens. This time it's Apple. Apple is suing OpenAI because their hardware team allegedly stole trade secrets to build a competitor to the iPhone or to an Apple product. This is the sloppiest of Slop World topics.
So our boy Sam is in trouble again. So brought some popcorn. I'm all here. Tell me.
We kind of miss talking about Sam Altman and OpenAI. We haven't really been digging into them in a while. And so I think this is kind of the perfect excuse. They're back in the news, and we've been meaning to do a check-in on what the heck is going on at OpenAI. So today's the day.
Lovely. I cannot wait to hear all the things you got to say, Kate. So please walk me through this.
Okay, well, if you remember a while back, we did an episode where we sort of traced through all of the directions OpenAI was running. Spoiler alert, it was like a million directions. The company is sort of expanded through all these different avenues: hardware, social media, data centers, enterprise tools, even working with the government. So they're kind of everywhere all at once. And today, I think we should unpack the Apple story and then also sort of get to the root of the issue. Is this a company being ambitious, or is this a company that doesn't know where to run?
I already know my answer, but please keep me honest, fair, and unbalanced. I want to hear what you have to say. I'm bringing some stuff myself that I'm going to be sharing in a few minutes with some things people might not know are going on right now. So I need to get into it right now.
In the last year alone, OpenAI launched and then killed its social media app, Sora, only after 6 months. It also has been working on building a hardware division from scratch. So this is an AI technology company. They have ChatGPT, their LLM, and they recruited a big shining star of a name, Johnny Ive from Apple fame, as well as a ton of other talent that they allegedly poached from Apple. And so aggressively are they leaning into this space that Apple is actually now suing them over it. And we can break that down in a little bit of detail later, but they basically are saying that they stole trade secrets to get their hardware division off the ground. There's one more thing, which is that they have been striving towards an IPO. And there's been chatter that they've sort of reportedly been walking back that filing, maybe pushing it to next year. So maybe there's too many irons in the fire. I mean, none of these are side projects, right? These are all really big endeavors that require millions and billions of dollars. And at OpenAI, they're kind of all happening at the same time.
All right. Now, here I go in devil's advocate mode. I'm fair from vouching for Jeff Bezos. I do need to ask a question. Amazon will sell you books, useless stuff, medicine, groceries. So how is Amazon doing all of that any different than OpenAI? Because I can make a case they're doing the same.
Right. But don't forget, Amazon has been in business for 25 years. So the fact that they started with books and now do cloud servers and healthcare and groceries, that's an expansion of a company. OpenAI is very, very junior. It's a baby company. They haven't been around for very long. And yet, with all this capital that they have at their fingertips, they are doing all the things all at once. And in some ways, the things contradict each other. So it's just a little bit confusing to try to unravel.
All right. Let's go with it. I'll keep an open mind, but I reserve my right to go back to my initial opinion later, Kate.
Okay, so let's back up into the evidence of all of this, right? Let's start with the IPO, because I think this is kind of like the best piece of evidence that maybe all these different trajectories aren't ambition, maybe it's disorganization. And it almost seems like, OpenAI can't really agree with itself on anything. Like, who are these executives and what are they all marching toward, right? So let's go back into the timeline. March 2026, OpenAI closes $122 billion of new funding, and they are looking for an $852 billion valuation. Around June, OpenAI confirms it filed confidential IPO paperwork with the SEC, but a few weeks later, multiple outlets are reporting that the company's own advisors are now pushing them to delay the IPO to 27. Why? I don't work there, but it's a really interesting fact to look at. And then if you want to think internally a little bit about some of the politics behind the scenes, there are two different OpenAI executives who want to delay. for two actually contradictory reasons. Sarah Friar, the CFO, has said that for over a year, the company isn't operationally ready for the public markets. She pointed to the fact that they are projecting to spend $600 billion in compute through 2030, and that when you have to show that expenditure to shareholders every quarter, that's a really heavy burden for a company that is looking so far into the future with so high of a capital raise. But then Sam Altman is sort of reportedly also backing off of rushing into this IPO. His reason is a little bit different. He's holding out for a higher valuation. So this is a guy that has high aspirations, right? His role is to be the North Star of the company. He is certainly taking on that mantle with authority. He wants a $1 trillion valuation before they open themselves up to the public market. Anything less to him is allegedly a non-starter.
So on one side, we're getting accountability and transparency in theory. And on the other side, it's just like, I want to see if mine is bigger than Anthropic or Elon's, toxic masculinity. Can't help it. It's not a surprise that they're not agreeing on everything. If only a podcast had spoken about it like a year ago, maybe we have a link up here and we'll leave it on the description, because I feel like we're having a very similar conversation with an update that just validates all the things we've been predicting.
We totally are. And the breadcrumbs were there and we saw the breadcrumbs. I even think that was like in 2025 when we did that episode, right? So if you have been like sort of looking for the signals, they've been there. But like where we are today is it's the same scenario, but just even further bloated with valuation, with money, right? That's being poured into this company. A lot of people right now are nervous about a tech bubble. I think the fact that some of these pieces are not connecting is perhaps a signal that there is one. Do you agree?
I mean, it's if I go by what I'm reading on the news and what I'm hearing from you, it does seem to me things are kind of all over the place, but also that there's a lot of potential things that could make this situation even more complex and complicated.
Yeah, and you also you have to believe in the dream, right? They're selling a dream. They're not making widgets, right? And they're missing their financial targets, their own growth targets. They're missing them quarter over quarter. And so I don't know what we're supposed to be investing in if it isn't a dream.
It's good to dream dreams. I remember that's a song that got very popular like 10 years ago, wasn't it? What was her name? I can't remember. But anyway, that's not the whole story, right? Like we said, so far you've set up scenario. We've been seeing the news. Things are all over the place. They can kind of agree where they're going. And even when they're agreeing the direction, it's for different reasons that might be clashing at each other. So they become blockers. But then it gets worse. It gets worse because I want to go through the charges or the things that are being filed against OpenAI. But then I got even more. And some of it might affect folks watching. So you need to stay watching right now. Give it a like. So, you always get these videos on your home feed. But anyway, let's go for it. First one, like we said, is the Apple lawsuit, right? Apple is saying that OpenAI's hardware team, which is run by Tang, a former vice president at Apple, basically what they were doing was coaching departing Apple employees on how to avoid this security review and directed job candidates to bring actual parts from Apple to their interviews, bring stolen hardware to a job interview. And in the past, for full disclosure, I've actually worked for Apple and they're a very protective company. You sign NDAs for everything. So
yes,
I'm sure they're not taking this lightly if it's the same Apple I worked for almost 10 years ago. Now, here's some of the things they're saying. They are stole unreleased hardware and product designs and technical specs for these unannounced Apple devices. That's number one. Number two, they run a recruiting scheme to extract more secrets. So job candidates allegedly were told to bring Apple parts, like actual Apple parts and components to OpenAI interviews. Number three, they took confidential supplier and manufacturer data, vendor details, proprietary manufacturing techniques, allegedly obtained through Apple's supply chain in China, it's my understanding. And like we said, they coach employees to provide security on their way out, including, stolen laptop, unauthorized access to systems.
Allegedly, like this is what Apple is claiming. But if any of this has a kernel of truth, it's pretty brazen. Like the thing that really gets me, that like really irks me, is that they're kind of using their interview process as like a trap, right? Like a honeypot to get people to bring secrets over to OpenAI. That's pretty gross if it's true.
That's the thing, right? If it's true and they say OpenAI is not aware of any evidence, but then again, we need to remember that both the defense for Sam Bankman-Fried and Elizabeth Holmes, they said the same. So we shall see. We shall see.
Good point.
I'm not a judge, so we need to see what happens on Discovery. But what else is happening with OpenAI?
Take me through more stuff. I need it all.
The government stake early this month, while all of this is happening, OpenAI proposed handling the U.S. government a 5% equity stake. So that's worth about, some Altman might not agree with the valuation, but that's worth about $42.6 billion. And it's kind of modeled after Alaska's oil fund, right?
So weird.
We got him being sued for allegedly stealing Apple trade secrets. And in the same month, he's asking Washington, in the same month he's getting sued, they're asking Washington to become a partner. And my question is, if a government owns a piece of your company, do they have a financial reason to go easy on regulation? What do you think, Kate? What's the chat thinking in the comments? Let me know if this might have something to do with maybe, a little bit. Let's keep it chill with the regulation. We don't gotta go too hard, right?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the foundational reason of why they were doing this. I mean, they're framing it as they're sharing the upside of their potential financial gains with the American public, not buying goodwill from the Trump administration.
Of course.
I don't know if I'm going to take that at face value. I think, even if the former is true, the latter is enticing enough for them to be doing this right now.
We all know that trickle-down economics works really well. We've seen it time and time again. So
Proven
I'm sure
time and time again, yes.
I'm already thinking what I'm going to spend my cut of all that things. I'm already placing orders in advance. Sushi for sure. So we got a lawsuit, a government handout request, and then we got Sora. Like you said, we got Sora, gone because of the GPU costs and legal exposure. And I don't know if you remember the browser we covered, Atlas, that one. It's a goner too.
The browser,
Gone. Two, here's the thing, right? Like we got one bad story, it happens. Big company, tons of exposure. Two weird stories or two bad stories or two sketchy stories in the same month. It's starting to feel like you're really going through one. But then if the company is arguing with itself about whether they need to go public or not, they have this trade secret issue, a proposal to make your regulator a partner, and so on and so forth. Again, everything allegedly. And the product, that live and expire within a couple of months.
Devil's advocate, okay?
Okay.
Has there ever been a company that has been able to grow at this speed before? We have to look at the financial situation of all this. For the record, neither of us is a financial advisor or know very much about this stuff, but I do know a little bit. And the amount of private capital that is being put into these organizations is the biggest ever. So they have this runway to success that is extremely slick and allows them to move very quickly. We don't have a model for this. So is this just what building out a mega corporation like this looks like when it's happening at this speed in real time?
That's a great question. And I'm going to do something unprecedented for someone with a podcast, which is saying, I don't have the answer to that one. But
no.
But what I do have is years of experience working with startups. And there's always an element of chaos, right? Because you're growing fast. And it's true what you say, that with AI, we got Anthropic, we got Google, we got whatever Elon Musk is calling, whatever he has going on. We got OpenAI. They are competing. They're hyperscaling. There's tons of money to burn. But at the end of the day, we're still, there's always instead of saying when AGI comes, it's if AGI comes, and every statement they make, I invite everyone to say if instead of when, because there's a lot of magical thinking, right? And again, if you're watching this video and you feel different, I want to read your comments, right? But to me, it seems there's a lot of aspirational things. You know, you have this narrative about sentient AI, all of that. But when I go to the facts, it's the math ain't mathing, and I'm not even that great at math, and I can see
the math ain't mathing. And like, I feel like as a founder, there are certain things that you have to have intact in order to be successful. This is my philosophy, right? This is Kate's philosophy. One is you have to have a very clear worldview. What do I want to make in the world? How do I want the world to be? How do I influence what the world becomes? Two, you have to have a direction. I am doing this thing. I am doing this thing. I am doing this thing by all means. This is where we're all going, because without that, everybody runs in a million directions. And the third thing is you have to have a high tolerance for chaos, because startup land is chaotic. And when you are a challenger or creating a new space, it's just part and parcel with the landscape that you're in. So you have to be okay with it, whether you learn that in your childhood or you learned it along the road of your career. To me, OpenAI, under the leadership of Sam Altman, has two of the three. They have a worldview. It may not be a worldview that you and I share or particularly like, but they do have one in which AGI comes about and the problems of the world are solved and people are given this sort of freedom to express themselves while AI labors at the work. And they also have a high tolerance for chaos, clearly, because they are literally making it happen. But do they have a direction? Do they know the path they're walking down? I challenge, perhaps they do not. And maybe a year ago, when we had this exact same conversation and we said, why are they running in all these directions? That right there was the tell that they don't know where they're going and they don't know how to get to this worldview that they have.
Back in 2014, I was part of an incubator. And one of the things I remember in one of the first sessions I had with the mentors was they talk about knowing where your bullseye is. Because if you just throw stuff at the wall, but you don't know really the reason you're throwing it and why, even if you hit bullseye, you don't know how you got there. You don't know how to make that consistent or sustainable. And it seems to me that they kind of come up with the big picture thinking, which again, I think both of you will agree that it's great to innovate and disrupt and think big. I mean, we're both pretty entrepreneurial, but there's a difference, right, between this move fast and break things, and literally move fast and break the economy, break society, and ultimately bring, did I say break the economy? Because that's what it's looking like if these companies crash, right? With so much money invested in the stock market. Now, though, what I have for you is, if you like companies that burn money without really knowing why they're doing that, we got a video on Uber and how they blew up the budget for a whole year for AI in just 4 months. And people are really liking it. We got a lot of really cool comments. So if you're enjoying this content, go ahead, watch that one. And don't forget to like and subscribe, because every week we'll bring you this AI news with receipts. So then you can make an informed decision on how you feel about it. And as usual, we got all the resources in the description. Goodbye. See you in a week. We love you.